Welcome to our series on early and middle childhood nutrition, along with the teenage years and then the older adult. What we're going to start with is toddlers' nutrient needs. Now, first, I want to discuss the body composition of the infant as the infant goes to being a toddler. Now, this is generally from that first to second year of life, and you can look at the body composition. That's what's shown here, where the infant is about 11% protein, about half water, and then a lot of fat, 34% fat. And you know, when you look at an infant, they have that really wide gait. They generally have those rolls around their belly and rolls on their cheeks, and that's normal because they have quite a bit of fat. But as they change in between that first and second year of life, when they become a toddler, you can see that the water composition goes up and the fat content in their bodies goes down dramatically. Now, along with that change between that 12 and 24 months of that first to second year, the diet changes too. And at this point in life, the diet changes more in this short period of time, changes more dramatically than any other time in life. Now, if we look at what a toddler actually needs, the protein intake that they should be consuming is generally adequate from almost every regular diet, so you don't need to focus on increasing protein from any sources. Now, the carbohydrates are actually quite high, and this is because that a toddler's brain is actually large for their size. And if you think about it, if you think about those 2-year-olds, those 3-year-olds, they usually have a really big head compared to their bodies, and they grow into their brain. And the brain's fuel is glucose, so it's not that you should be feeding the toddler sugar at all, but whole food carbohydrate sources definitely are recommended. Fiber intake is important, and the way you figure out fiber intake is by taking a toddler's age, say 3 years old, and then adding 5. So a 3-year-old would need 8 grams of fiber because 3 plus 5 is 8. What's really important is that fatty acids are essential to the diet of a toddler. And if you look at this, 30 to 40% of their diet should be from fat. That's a tremendous amount. So you definitely don't want to have a low-fat diet, and the key should be focusing on essential fatty acids, not saturated fats, not processed vegetable oils, whole food sources, and essential fatty acids such as omega-3 fatty acids. We talked about vitamin D in our last series, and again, it's important in this series as well. You can see this toddler here all bundled up. It's got a hat. Everything's covered. So vitamin D is not going to be synthesized from UV light hitting the skin. That means that there should be some intake of vitamin D, or a pediatrician may recommend supplementation. And lastly is going to be iron. We're actually going to have a section on iron deficiency because this is a very important nutrient. Remember that the fetus stores iron, so that in the infancy there's a 4 to 6 month store of iron. But then iron is really necessary from the diet, so this is really key for toddlers. Now, I mentioned omega-3 fatty acids. You definitely don't want a low-fat diet. They're important for cognitive development. They actually decrease asthma risk, so there's an association with an increased intake of omega-3 fatty acid and a lowered risk of asthma. Assists with growth and brain development, and it lowers the risk of ADHD. And we're going to we have a section on ADHD as well. So limit saturated fat and all processed fats, processed vegetable oils, any fats from processed foods in particular. Some saturated fats from plant sources or even a small amount from animal sources, and a whole food source is okay, but not a large amount. Definitely not a low-fat diet though. Very important to not limit fat. So fats from whole food sources are okay. 30 to 40% of the diet should be fat. Now, this is a statistic that says from a USDA study, 30% of American children eat at least one fast food meal every single day. So that's a third of the children, and that's a scary statistic. And it's very important that to know that if children are eating fast food, they're not eating whole food sources. They're not getting enough of their nutrients, such as iron, for example, or any of their omega-3 fatty acids, but they are getting too much processed fat. They are getting too many food additives. They're getting too much sugar. They're not going to get enough fiber. So very important to focus on whole food sources. So again, too little fiber and micronutrients, too much sugar, salt and fat and calories. Okay, this is essentially what we've been talking about the entire semester. So lastly, I'm just going to finish with, how to get kids to eat better foods. And it's challenging. Most mothers will tell you it's difficult for them to eat certain types of vegetables. And it's okay. Kids will go through a fad where they're not going to eat one food and then they'll eat another food. And that's okay. But it is important to have a diet, a well-rounded diet with mostly whole foods. And one way is to make foods fun, get kids involved with the choices and with food preparation. Try to stay away with a lot of processed foods. If they don't know about it, then they won't know to eat it. So this is just an example of how to make some foods fun. And this is the end of our first section on toddlers' nutrients needs.